Check characters on me.
All right. Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of Soundbooth Theater Live. A very special episode of Soundbooth Theater Live, and the reason being is that we are celebrating the upload and completion of the production of Trial by Fire, the audiobook. For those of you who do not know, this is the second book in the Archemi Online Chronicles series, LitRPG, written by James Osiris Baldwin. And look, there he is. That's James Osiris Baldwin right there. And sitting next to him is our special guest. James, would you like to introduce yourselves?
So this is Kath. Kath is my wife and one of the people to help me work on the Archemi Online series, specifically in the animal behavior and like the behavior of the dragon and the dinosaur Cutthroat. Well, she's the person that I go to for ideas, inspiration, and wacky animal shenanigans. That's kind of her thing. She knows way too much about animals for
someone who isn't paid to know about animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's here to talk about Cutthroat and cruelty specifically.
Yes.
At the end of the book.
Two characters who are very much a big part of Trial by Fire.
Trial by Fire is really all about the critters, I think. It's very much the book where Hector's baby dragon grows up. So she goes from being his little tidbit to being a sort of, dragony dragon.
Yep. And it's very satisfying.
Had a pretty big part of that.
Yes, and we're going to be talking more. Kanth is going to have some time after we do the listening. I'll do I'll do a little rundown of the way things are going to go today. So, hello, welcome. We're going to do a 10 to 15 minute introduction just to talk a little bit about the series, talk a little bit about ourselves, but we're going to save most of that for the end of the stream. After this little introduction, we're going to go into the listening, the actual listening party, where you guys aren't going to see us anymore. We're going to jump down into the chat and we're going to interact with you that way. And the only thing you guys will be hearing is the finished, fully produced audiobook from chapters 1 to chapter 3. James, you were going to say something there?
Oh, just that, like when the reading starts, me and Kath will hide under the desk and drink Irish cream together and just wait out,
Yes, actually, that's a great question. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking probably the whitest thing I have ever had in my entire life, which is white chocolate Irish cream. It is like 4 different kinds of white in one drink. It's amazing.
White chocolate Irish cream. 4 different kinds of white, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just vanished. Sorry.
And is it a strongly alcoholic beverage?
It is, and it doesn't taste like it at all. It doesn't taste like it's alcoholic in the slightest. But when you stand up, you're like, oh wait, this is actually just as strong as regular Irish cream, or maybe a little stronger.
Yeah. And now
then you get up, and suddenly it goes to your feet, and you're like,
How about you, Kanth? Are you drinking anything?
Not yet.
Still to be decided, eh?
Yeah, probably. Okay. It's either that or, it's legal here, and I may decide to worship the god of the rising smoke instead.
Oh, yes, the god of the rising smoke. Let it billow into our lungs.
The devil's lettuce.
Vape. The devil's lettuce.
Let the vapors infuse in my bloodstream. I myself drank a lot this past weekend. I was down at DragonCon with the people of Soundbooth Theater. I had an amazing time. I got to meet some fantastic LitRPG authors, and got to meet Nicholas Legrand, who is a moderator on the Gamelit Society group, which you should join if you aren't a member. And also Shemer Kuznets. I got to meet Shemer Kuznets, and we actually stayed at the same Airbnb. It was his birthday.
Oh, okay.
So,
I remember seeing that on Facebook. Was it that his wife helped him get there? Like, it was like a birthday present for him to go to DragonCon?
So, my understanding was that, yes, exactly that. His wife was basically said, yeah, you can go to Dragon Con.
Get out of the house and go and socialize.
Exactly.
Go and meet other human beings.
And so
she has to do that.
It all worked out.
Because otherwise, I would just never leave. I would just sit here and write constantly and game.
Oh yeah, so it's your birthday present to her for you to leave?
I think so.
Well, it's more along the lines of, I want to go out and do something. Let's go to a cafe, and you can do the very same things you do at home in a cafe, and we can both be happy.
And she sort of has to like open the door, and like I'm here hunched over my keyboard, and I'm like, you know, because I've been here for 3 days, and there's just coffee cups everywhere. And...
Well, rubber washcloth, of course.
I have I drank a little too much, I think, at Dragon Con, especially on the Friday night. Just a wee bit too much. You know, it was Dave Con. Dave Wilmarth had a convention happening there, and there was some alcohol there, and I met so many great authors, guys. This is such a cool community. I'm not going to list all of you guys, but you're all fantastic. You know who you are. And then that night, we drank at the Westin Hotel downtown Atlanta, where beers are like $11 with, you know, tip, like quite expensive pints. And
that seems expensive for Atlanta.
Yeah,
like,
well, I got
the South is usually cheaper.
Yeah, it was a rude awakening when I woke up the next day. So, long story short, I am drinking tea, echinacea.
Trying to bolster your sabotaged immune system.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so that hopefully I'll be able to narrate something tomorrow.
And the adventure of, is it Concrud or is it this extended 3-day hangover? Who knows?
Yeah. Is it a little bit of both?
Our last NorwestCon was like that. So, like, I don't know if I've ever talked about NorwestCon. Like, NorwestCon is the event that I go to most frequently, and it's where I usually have a table. And last NorwestCon, well, a few NorwestCons ago, we accidentally joined a drinking guild. And I mean, it was literally an accident, as in we stumbled into a room party, and they kind of just adopted us, and suddenly we're a member of this normally invite-only party. So they just invite us back every year now, and we go there. Phenomenal.
Okay.
And so NorwestCon is usually like that too. It's basically this sort of haze of like stumbling back to our hotel rooms, like plastered, getting up in the morning, going to the table, having to be presentable at the table, you know, signing books and everything, and then doing it all over again for 4 days.
If I might add something to that, James had a doctor's appointment after that convention, 2 days after that convention, with the doctor, and they were doing normal routine tests. And one of those tests came back that he had elevated liver enzyme. We were concerned about that.
Wow, okay.
And he said, well, I did just go to what is amounted to a 3-day drinking binge at this convention. And our doctor was like, oh, well, that would explain a lot. And
don't do that again.
And everything was fine. It all went back to
How
normal.
often do you do that? Do you need to talk to someone? And I'm like, no. I mean, I'm Australian, so it's basically like a national sport, you know.
You know, that's A, hilarious, but B, the fact that you say like NorwestCon, like this is the convention that you normally go to. I really love the idea. I romanticize about this idea where the different conventions for LitRPG authors, okay, stick with me, is like Game of Thrones, where you, James, are the LitRPG author of the Northwest. And
me and Matt Dinneman, yeah.
And then there's someone at Gen Con, and then the Dragon Con people can fight. That's the great battlegrounds.
And the Worldcon people are kind of like the Baratheon, because they're sort of like in the middle.
Oh, yeah. See? There we go. It could be a thing.
Yeah, like me and Matt Dinneman, we're both in the Pacific Northwest, so we tend to go to NorwestCon the most.
I would love to see a map. I would love to see a map of the different conventions in the States, and maybe Toronto, and maybe Montreal. And then, like, see what LitRPG authors are where, and then, like, create, like, different colors. I don't know. I would love to see that as long as it was done, like, all in good fun, you know?
Yeah. Well, I plan to make it to Dragon Con next year.
Okay.
So if you're going again,
I will.
Yeah,
I will go there and attempt to drink you all under the table.
Oh my God! Well, it won't.
Probably
take
the
much.
only person I won't be able to drink under the table is Charles Dean, because Charles is just a machine. Like,
and I'll give you a run for your money.
you know, he runs Drinking with Charles for a reason.
Yeah, it's practice. It's just his spiritual meditation.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty normal to start binge drinking at around 14 in Australia. I'm not terribly proud of that, but it is kind of a national standard. So yeah, I used to do that when I used to run an anime club at my university, and my God, we drank so much. I hate to think what my liver looks like.
Well,
not so much anymore. Now it's like once a year, but every Friday. Oh my God.
I think we're ready to move from the topic of drinking, the very important discussion topic, which is the main reason why we had this stream, to be honest. But to you guys, the audience, hello to you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please leave a comment in the chat. Say hello. In about 3 minutes, we're going to be jumping over to audio so that you guys can just hear the audiobook. You won't hear us. Me blabbing, you won't hear keyboards typing or birds chirping. It'll just be the audiobook. And we'll be in the chat with you. So if you guys have any questions, you can ask us in the chat there, or you can save them for after the stream and we can answer them live on camera. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Also, check out the James Osiris Baldwin, that's your name.
Author group, yeah.
Author group, the Facebook author group, Soundbooth Theater Live, Facebook, yada yada yada. Subscribe to this.
Yeah, we have the author group, and we also have a pretty active Discord server. So there's links to that. If you go to the author group, it should be like author James Osiris. On
Discord.
Facebook, then you can actually get a link to the group there. So
yeah, Discord. There's a Soundbooth Theater one too. If someone is in the chat and can provide a link, that would be amazing, because I don't have it handy right now. So, what are you guys going to be listening to? This is the audiobook, or one of the many audiobooks that Soundbooth Theater as a team has been working on for the past several months. It's been a long haul, but we're really, really happy with the final product. James has listened to it, and
it's so good.
We have his seal of approval. Just so you guys know, this was obviously James wrote it. I did the narration, but Soundbooth Theater, we're a troupe. We do things as a team. Laurie Catherine Winkle played Suri, Karalti, the female cat. The entire female cast is all Laurie Catherine Winkle, and she pulled out the stops for some of these accents that are.
She did an incredible job, and she, like Laurie. I think Laurie is the narrator who had to do like the most characters, as in like the most main characters, and she managed to bring all of the female characters in the book, who are all very different. Like they span from Karalti, the baby dragon, through to Suri, who's the lady, the red-haired lady on the cover, who is a very like physically large, tough Australian Lebanese woman. Through to Rin, who is this much more delicate, sort of feminine creature, and she's done a whole lot of minor characters in between it. She did an incredible job.
She really did.
And all of you did an amazing job. I admit, Jeff's performance of the character Andric is just incredible. It blew my socks off.
Out of sight. Yeah. It's Oscar worthy. Just like it gives me chills just to think about it. So yes, Jeff
he
Hayes
did
as well.
Amazing job.
Obviously,
it's clear that he really enjoyed the role.
Yeah. He said that. He said he could really get into it. Jeff Hayes did Andric, and that's not all. We also need proofers. We need polishers. And we had Bonnie Price, who is actually in the chat. Say hello to Bonnie, Sunless Bonbon. She's there. She proofed this audiobook. So she did a fantastic job as well. And also Griffin Malnar did all of the polishing, and he made it sound muy bene.
Yeah, it's overall it's an amazing book. So I mean, not like
Well,
It
I mean,
sounds really cool.
overall,
oh, yeah,
I mean, especially the story itself. But I mean,
no, I mean, like the audiobook sounds incredible. You guys really brought the story to life. And this is quite a fast-paced story. Like, it's a pretty big book.
Yeah.
But the story is meant to move quite quickly, and they managed to sort of get that. And the music really adds to it, I think.
Well, thank you, James. I think we're ready to jump into this audiobook. What do you guys say?
Yeah, looks good to me.
All right, we'll do about 45 minutes, the first 3 chapters of Trial by Fire, and then we're going to be doing a Q&A session with where Kanth is going to talk a little bit about the creatures and the inspiration and insights that she helped to provide for Karalti and Cutthroat. And then afterwards, it's Q&A for James and myself. We hope you'll stick around.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Here we go.
Soundbooth Theater presents Trial by Fire, Archemi Online Chronicles Book 2 by James Osiris Baldwin. Narrated by Justin Thomas James. Featuring Jeff Hayes as Andrik and Kanzo, and Laurie Catherine Winkle as Suri, Rin, and the rest of the female cast. Chapter 1. Riding an angry, hungry dinosaur is hard at the best of times. Riding an angry, hungry dinosaur through a crowded city port with a stuffy nose and a baby dragon kicking you in the kidney? Welcome to the glamorous life of a virtual reality video game adventurer. Karalti, can you not? I hissed down toward the struggling bundle that wriggled inside my cloak, struggling to control my mount as she snapped and lunged at passers-by.
Karalti, see!
The hatchling scrabbled with her feet again, thrusting her gleaming black opal nose out from underneath the cloak.
Smells good!
Karalti! Fighting not to sneeze, I reined in Cutthroat with one hand and shoved Karalti's snout back under the cloth. She squawked with indignation.
No! Hector!
Her telepathic voice whined inside my head.
Karalti, see!
Karalti keeps her snoot out of sight before the bad men come and take her away, I thought back, trying to sniff back the mucus that was threatening to run out my itching nose. It was the common cold debuff, which I'd picked up from sleeping out in the woods on a cold night. The debuff wasn't serious, a 5% reduction in my perception skill, but it had me on edge. About a week ago, before I'd been uploaded to Archemi, I died from the flu in real life. I hated being sick.
The bad men aren't here!
Karalti grumped back. You don't know that, and neither do I. Please, stay hidden.
Bah, okay.
She managed to contain herself for all of 5 seconds before her snout poked out again, nostrils working.
Smells so good!
Stop it! I immediately regretted growling aloud, because the itch in my nose built to a sudden sneeze, and Cutthroat lost her goddamned mind. The hookwing roared and spun her body to the right and rammed us into a stand loaded with ice and teetering piles of freshwater fish. What the? Ah! My fish! The vendor sprung up as the stand collapsed. My God's forsaken fish! My irritable Allosaurus-sized war machine bellowed down at him. Swearing as only an ex-soldier could, I hauled on the reins and got her back under control. Only for a moment. The fishmonger ran out in front of Cutthroat, screaming, My family will starve! Starve! My fish are ruined! Cutthroat was a hookwing, a feathered raptoran dinosaur who was 8 feet tall at the shoulder, about 20 feet long from nose to tail, with tattered plumage as black as pitch, blazing golden eyes, and a temperament that could only be described as nuclear. Each one of the hooks her species was named for, the fused digits of her hands, were wickedly sharp scythe-like claws as long as a bastard's sword blade. I barely even had time to wince before she lowered her head like an angry bull and charged the man down. The vendor screamed, I screamed, Karalti screamed because screaming was fun. Cutthroat roared as she knocked the man to the side and darted her head toward his gut, and the only thing that saved his life was the iron muzzle that encased her head like a cage. Instead of eviscerating him, Cutthroat nipped his shirt through her face cage, picked him up, and threw him. I didn't even see where he landed. Cutthroat was off down the road, boiling with saurian road rage, and I couldn't do a damn thing to stop her. "Sorry! I'm really sorry!" I called back over my shoulder.
Funny fish guy, Karalti see!
Karalti's entire head popped out through the gap in my cloak this time. My HUD flashed an alert.
You have lost 250 reputation in Bryos. Current reputation, minus 125. Troublemaker. Law enforcement has been alerted.
It was enough to make a man weep. Cutthroat charged all the way down the main boulevard beside the docks, scattering people out of the way. I hauled on her reins, but it wasn't until the rings were about to tear out of her nostrils that she finally stopped, sneezing with irritation. Karalti giggled the entire time, and she kept trying to stick her fucking head out. I took several deep breaths, fighting down the twin urges to yell at her and plead with her, and marched Cutthroat down the dirty road. "Karalti, I know it smells great here, but you need to stay under the cloak. We now have T-minus 10 minutes before the Mata Argus arrive."
Oopsie.
Karalti said soberly. "Yeah, big oopsie." The city of Bryos was the largest in Ilia, bigger even than the capital, Lyran. It was, however, by no means the prettiest. The Bryos skyport was a filthy sprawl of markets, docks, taverns, inns, whorehouses, and warehouses. Sailors, beggars, and merchants vied for space. The Magitech engines of flying ships from all around the world hummed, roared, and surged at all ends of the wharfs. The air was full of the smells of fish, frying food, dung, magic, and machine grease. Behind the racket, the thunderous sound of Archemi's harsh oceans could be heard below us, the sound of waves the size of mountains washing up against even taller cliffs. If it weren't for the HUD, my heads-up display, the HP rings that flashed into view when I focused on people, and the way that certain objects were framed by rings of different colored lights and labels, I'd have completely forgotten that Archemi was actually a video game. My hope was that Bryos had enough ships coming and going that we could vanish before the Mata Argus showed up. They were the reason that I had a cold, and why I was still only level 8. Barely. And Karalti was only level 1. We were currently marked with the fugitive status. Every time I'd attempted a side quest, visited a merchant, tried to stay at an inn, or made any trouble after escaping the eyrie of St. Gregory, Ilia's finest appeared out of thin air and began to hunt us. Each time we'd fought them, they'd gotten harder. The last group, in some podunk Ilian village I couldn't even remember the name of, had been 10 levels higher than me. There had been no fight. We'd had to run.
Not even Little Peak?
Karalti asked as we cut down an alley toward the docks. Not even Little Peak.
Okay.
Karalti wheezed a long, suffering sigh and withdrew back into the cloak, leaving only the tip of her nose and her nostrils outside.
Karalti smell?
Karalti can smell, but keep your head covered. She made a happy chirp, nose working overtime.
Smells good! Like fishies!
I rolled my eyes, but couldn't help but smile. Since fleeing the Skirden of St. Gregory with Karalti 4 days ago, we had been relentlessly hounded by the Mata Argus, the secret police who enforced the Warden's rule in Ilia. They wanted to kill me and drag Karalti back to the Skirden, the Dragon Knights who would force her to breed the next generation of enslaved dragons for their order. As a result, we had been making do by hunting and brewing potions, killing monsters, and dispatching mercenaries and bandits. The experience had been pathetic, but the potions I'd been able to sell for a silver here, a silver there. Still, without the ability to do much in the way of quests, leveling had all but ground to a halt. Entering Bryos was a huge risk, and the only reason we were in the city at all was because it was the only way to escape the reach of Ilia for good. I intended to get on a skyship for my fictional homeland, Tungant, and leave this stinking shit-heap of a country behind. Gold rolled and clinked inside my pack as we turned a corner and lit on the inn I was supposed to be looking for. The Whistling Clam, yes, really, was a large ramshackle inn with 3 stories and 2 balconies, the kind that was sure to be smashed during dramatic player versus NPC bar fights. The entire building was painted sky blue, the color flaking off in patches from the damp, filthy wood beneath. Anxiously, I walked Cutthroat over to a notice board highlighted by my HUD. A blinking blue arrow hung over the flight schedule for Tungant. Glancing back down the street, I reached out to it and ripped a copy into my inventory, turned Cutthroat around, and nudged her to walk back down the alley beside the inn as I had my HUD read it to me telepathically. "Let's see," I muttered aloud, reining Cutthroat to a stop. "Oh man, we are so freaking lucky."
Huh?
Coraldi's nose lifted up the edge of my cloak. "There's a flight boarding in 30 minutes. Long trip with about 10 port stops. But still," I said, folding the timetable back into my quest items. "And the fee listed on the Archimepedia checks out. All we have to do is stay down and stay cool, and we're out of this pig pen."
I'm hungry.
Coraldi said, her tone dreamy with longing. "You're always hungry, little tidbit."
Can we find something to eat?
Coraldi pressed in against my back, shivering and hot. Ever since hatching, Coraldi had been ravenous. She hadn't grown much in size since she'd hatched, but I'd noticed that the closer she got to level 2, the flakier and duller her scales had looked, and the more she'd wanted to eat. And damn, the kid could eat. "There should be a stable around here somewhere," I replied. "I can smell it. Come on, Cutthroat, move your butt." Cutthroat stopped trying to scratch her muzzle off and began to pad forward, tail lashing. Most riding animals in Archemi were meat-eaters, so public stables provided them with offal, spoiled hides, rodents, and probably the odd murdered pickpocket in hospitality troughs outside inns and taverns. The troughs and stalls reeked terribly, but hookwings were scavengers capable of stomaching even the rottenest meat. I'd learned this when Cutthroat returned to camp one night chewing on a human body she'd dug out of a bog. She'd been fine. I, on the other hand, would never be okay again. I basically let Cutthroat guide us to the nearest stable, which was on the other side of the Whistling Clam in a small courtyard facing Hell's Walk, the street dividing the buildings from the docks. She surged eagerly toward the stalls and the trough of sun-ripened, fly-blown pig guts inside. Surprisingly, there were no other hookwings in there already. No stable hand either. I kept an eye out behind us and finally opened my cloak up. "Okay, Coralti, go grab something to eat."
Yay! Food's the best! Yay!
Coralti kicked off my leg, flapping like a bat. One wing hit me in the jaw, snapping my head back. Once the stars faded, I dropped down to the ground with a sigh, catching Cutthroat by the reins. While she foamed at the mouth, I unequipped her iron muzzle and folded it into my inventory. "Don't eat too much, Tidbit. You have to be ready to fly."
Okay.
The little queen dragon landed gracefully on the edge of the trough and began to chow down like her life depended on it. I was worried that I was doing something wrong with her. According to her character menu, dragons grew and matured by leveling. Coralti was still the size of a small dog, with feet and hands too big for her scrawny neck and wedge-shaped head. When she'd hatched, her gleaming black skin had rippled under light with colored fire, like opal. Flashes of blue, orange, green, gold, and red glowed between every dark scale. Now, her skin was dull and flaky. While my Saurian buddies pigged out, I went to the other side of the stable and kept watch over the strangely empty yard. From here, I could see out the gate and onto the street with perfect clarity. I kept an ear out for strange noises or conversations, and restlessly brought up Coralti's path information.
Dragon character information. Leveling your mount. Your NPC mount has her own experience pool that is independent from your own. Like you, she levels by gaining experience from combat, training, and practicing her skills. Unlike you, your dragon only gains 3 kinds of experience: combat experience, skill experience, and a special type of experience called lexica. Combat experience is gained by going on adventures, fighting enemies, and completing quests. When your dragon completes a quest with you, the 2 of you each receive 100% combat experience from the quest. Any experience you gain from winning combat is split. If you fight and kill a monster but your dragon doesn't help, only you gain that experience. If the 2 of you kill it together, you each earn 50% of the total experience from that monster. Lexica. Lexica is a form of experience unique to dragons that allows them to comprehend the words of power written into their blood. As your dragon gains more lexica, they can learn spells and unique abilities in addition to their path and advanced path. All dragons are born with the ability Gift of the Blood, which allows them to begin interpreting and manifesting words of power without needing to use any special tools or extra mana. At level 2, they have enough lexica to manifest their most important word, their breath weapon. Lexica experience is gained as your dragon matures. Between level 2 and level 31, when she is fully mature, she will gain a total of 60 lexica points that can be spent on spells or unique abilities. This is enough to select 10 to 20 possible spells or abilities. You cannot change these abilities, so choose wisely. Most spells require 3 lexica points to acquire, but some spells or abilities require as many as 6 points. Dragons are immune to mana toxicity and do not need any tools to control or maintain mana when performing magic. However, the trade-off is that the dragon's abilities have a long cooldown period, and casting too many spells in a row while airborne may cause the dragon to faint while flying, as each spell depletes their blood. They are also restricted to the spells and abilities determined by their type. Your dragon's character menu lists their type and subtype, if applicable. Your dragon is a queen dragon, which means that the words of power in her blood are unique to her, and the combination of abilities and spells available to her are not shared by any other dragon in Archemi. Her skill trees and the advanced paths available to her reflect this.
My dyslexic ass was still no good at reading, so I had the HUD telepathically narrate the page to me for the millionth time while the noise of the street filtered in. Even with the mental chatter, I could hear and distinguish every conversation going on outside and on the balconies of the Whistling Clam. That was because I was now literally a mutant. I had passed the trial of Marantha, the test given to aspiring dragon knights so that they could withstand all of the challenges that riding and fighting on a dragon presented. G-forces, extreme temperatures, vertigo, and perhaps most importantly, mana poisoning.
What do you mean you saw him with Kella?
Clams and cockles, fresh clams, 6 for 6.
I don't know. That Hulk looks like it couldn't make it cross me God's damned bathtub, let alone the Sea of Blades.
Girls at that place got the pox. Last time I went there, woke up 3 days later with blisters down there. Making noise no blisters ought to make.
And a different voice, more cultured, out of place. Yes, foreign. He's quite distinctive, with long hair, like in the drawing. Yes, he has it tied back like a savage. You saw him? Where did he... Is that so? My eyes snapped open. Karalti, I said aloud, turning to stalk back inside the stable. Go hide in the rafters. The little dragon chirped and cocked her crested head, a fillet of meat still dangling from her jaws. She regarded me with innocent violet-white eyes, radiating confusion. I pulled the Spear of 9 Spheres off Cutthroat's saddle and spun it around until the long glaive-like blade pointed down. Go! The Mata Argus are here! Karalti hissed and then sprung into the air. At level 1, her wings were still long enough and strong enough to carry her short distances, even when weighed down with food. I went to the edge of the stable, the head of the spear held low to the ground. The weapon wasn't much to look at. A 7-foot-long dark metal polearm with faint engravings softened and dulled by age. The head of the glaive was a full tang curved metal blade. I'd scrubbed the tarnish off, but even after close to a month of use, the weapon, an ancient magical relic, still looked like a broken antique.
Ruined Spear. Spear of 9 Spheres. Soulbound weapon. Slot, 2-handed. Item class, relic. Item quality, ruined. Damage, 25 to 55 slashing or piercing. Durability, 27%, -6 damage. Weight, 1 pound. Special, +2 dexterity, soulbound, +50 HP, +2 defense. A weapon reputed to be the Spear of 9 Spheres. To repair it, you will need to find a mastersmith capable of reforging lazula, blue steel, magical artifacts.
Time for me and you to do what we do best, my girl. I adjusted my grip on the spear. Break shit and kill things. Chapter 2. From the shadows, I watched the 7 men move into position. One mercenary stayed outside of the fence while the other 6 filed in and fanned out. They acted like professionals who knew how to work together, but the way they were moving told me they weren't 100% sure where I was. Either that, or they had someone approaching from behind the stable. They were probably DPS, a thief, rogue, assassin, or similar path. I pulled Cutthroat around by her reins, pointed her in the direction of the approaching vanguard, and swatted her as I gave her the code word command for attack. Ice cream! The hookwing knew what that word meant. Murder. She lowered her head and charged out of the stable, breaking out into the open with a roar while I bounded out of the way to face the unseen rearguard. 2 level 10 mercenary rogues, one with a net, the other with a crossbow, had jumped the fence and were coming up around the building. I nearly ran into the net carrier and reflexively brought the butt end of my spear around to hit him on the side of his head. As he staggered, I triggered one of my skills, Shadow Dance. I shot to the side, a blur of darkness, as the other man aimed and fired his crossbow in the wrong direction. I emerged out of Shadow Dance almost right behind him, slashing at his neck.
You backstabbed mercenary rogue. Critical hit.
The mercenary's head went flying, hitting the other guy as he scrambled up. He was hardened enough to not juggle it and scream. Covered in blood, snarling obscenities, he hurled the net at me and drew a pair of daggers. I heard men screaming in front of the stable, then a saurian shriek of rage and pain. "Don't worry, sweetheart," I called to Cutthroat, knocking the net away with the butt of the spear and whirling it to parry the first sword strike with the pointy end. "I'm coming!" Mercenaries called to each other, and boots thundered around both sides of the stables as I dodged, blocked, then hit the soldier's blade with a powerful strike, sending it flying out of his lacerated hand. I triggered lunge and drove the foot-long spear blade and part of the haft through his chest. He was a high enough level that it didn't kill him outright, but the kick to the chest to get the spear out of his body and the bleed debuff sure as hell did. There was a cry from the yard.
He's out back!
"Where's the dragon?" "Hiding, assholes." I ground my teeth and charged out to join Cutthroat. The hookwing was surrounded, trying to fight in multiple directions at once. Men with pikes kept her from their throats, while crossbowmen plugged her full of bolts. 3 mercenaries were torn apart like wet rags on the ground. I willed my body to become immaterial again. The tattoo on my right hand blazed with cold, sending shooting numbness through my body. My HP drained fractionally as I slithered into a haze of dark smoke. I dashed in past Cutthroat, supernaturally fast, and reappeared just behind one of the mercenaries who was attacking her. He spun, panicked, and struck a glancing blow off my shoulder armor as the others rushed in. I danced back like a ghost, blowing around one of the pikemen and reappearing behind and to the side of him. The mobs converged on me, and as soon as they massed up, I deployed the nuke, my newest ability and first AoE attack, Umbra Burst. Hurrah! I slammed the end of my spear into the ground, discharging the built-up dark energy in my body. Twisted, thorny vines of shadow sprung from the ground, lashing out to capture and puncture legs and arms. The men screamed in confusion and fear as ice crawled up along their flesh. I capitalized on the short frozen debuff with another ability, Blood Sprint, which powered a slashing strike that knocked 3 of the men off their feet and sent them to the ground, and its combo chain ability, Blood Storm. The dark mana swirling around my spear turned dark red as I whirled the polearm around and cut a swath through the mercenaries. Each successful blow restored health, and my HP jumped well above what I'd lost using Shadow Dance. 3 of them screamed and fell to the ground, their skin dry and stretched tight over the bones of their faces. 2 weeks ago I'd have been disturbed by what I was doing, but now I had Karalti, and I would have eaten a man alive if that's what it took to protect her. Ori Asal! The Mata Argus agent, who had stayed out of the battle until now, leveled his hands at me. Only then did I spot what he'd been hiding under his cloak. He was wearing gauntlets reinforced with black matte crystal capsules and flexible tubing, the leather glowing with runes. A spellcaster. He'd been letting his men wear us down, and he was level 25. The spell went off like a flashbang, blinding Cutthroat and me. It was like being stabbed in the eyeballs with a needle. NPCs who had been drawn to us to watch the fight fled, while screams of terror echoed from the street. I struggled to keep position, holding a fighting stance, but I took hits from all sides as the blindness debuff ticked down. Worse, I heard the mage speak another word of power. Thoram! Thunder cracked, and suddenly I was flying, and not in the fun way. The energy slammed into me and surged through my limbs. Like a bowl of wet noodles thrown at a wall, I hit the side of the stable, limbs turned to jelly, then bounced and clattered onto the ground. Or at least I thought it was the stable. My vision swam back into view, and I saw that I'd actually flown across the yard, through the open gate, tumbled across the road, and hit the side of a large shipping container at the water's edge. Barely 10 feet away was a flimsy knee-high barrier and a sheer 500-foot drop into the churning abyss that passed for Archemi's oceans. 300 HP had vanished like a bad dream. Groaning, I picked myself up to see the spellcaster whirl around and cast on Cutthroat as she charged him down. This spell engulfed my hookwing in a cloud of ice. Cutthroat gave a croaky squawk as she toppled to the ground. Fuck, this guy was fast. I gulped down a couple of healing potions as I dashed for the gate and slammed into the swordsman who barreled at me, clumsily swinging. I slashed him to the side and he fell, clutching his spurting throat. I bounded forward, leaping like a cricket in a bid to land on the mage, but my spear and feet slammed into an invisible barrier. My eyes widened just before he casually blasted me with the other hand. This time I hit the corner edge of the shipping crate and crunched instead of bounced.
Warning, you are stunned. Current HP, 25 out of 440. Warning, this enemy's challenge rating is dangerously high.
Ugh. The blood beat in my temples. I had to keep this fucker away from Kuralti. You there! Search the stable! The mage called back over his shoulder as he stalked through the gate and out to the street. The stun counter was still ticking down, and I struggled to move as he closed in on me, hand raised. Lightning danced around his fingers. And you, heretic, where is she? Where is the queen? Have you checked your ass? I heard it's pretty roomy in there. I spat blood, moving to hands and knees. I still had the Spear of Nine Spheres wrapped in one tight-knuckled fist, for all the good it was doing me. You are in no position to sling insults! The masked Mata Argus agent had a cold voice, dark with anger. Where is she? What have you done to her? The same thing I do to your mom every night. The mage wrenched me to my feet with a spell, his gauntlet burning with blue fire. Have it your way. We will extract the information at base without any need for your input. By the power vested in me by the Warden of Ilia... His speech was cut off by a furious black blur of claws and teeth. Kuralti dove at the back of his head and hit him at full speed, sending him staggering toward me. He flung his hands out just before his concentration broke, but the spell was successful. I was whiplashed around in midair before being slammed down onto the rough ground. I hit the knee-high cliffside barricade hard and felt something crack in my chest on the rebound. My arm went numb, and my spear skittered off across the dirt. Kuralti! No! Stay back! I yelled, rolling over to scramble up. The little dragon's neck swelled. She hissed and spat, kicking with her powerful hind feet. She caught her sickle claw on the edge of the mage's mask and kicked it free, bearing a surprisingly young face. He looked like a Mormon. Pale, pointed face, wavy, nut-blonde hair. Kuralti got one good slash across his eyes before he caught her by the neck like a turkey. Kuralti squealed, and my guts froze cold. Let her go, you jackbooted piece of shit! I roared, blood pouring from my nose, and charged at him, desperate to provide any distraction at all. If they took her... Hold fast! The last swordsman was running towards the pair of them with a net outstretched. No! I screamed now, real terror overwhelming common sense, self-preservation, even the need to breathe. Every day I was haunted by what had happened to her mother, and what would happen to her if they took her. Let her go!
Hector!
Kuralti screeched, little limbs flailing as the pair of men closed in. The soldier reached them before I did. He threw the net over Kuralti's struggling body, snaring her wings, and grabbed her in a bear hug. Stand by! Hold her! Don't worry, she's too young for fire! The mage was struggling to see and catch his breath. He went to go pick up his mask. I bellowed, charging him, but he wasn't distracted enough to ignore me. With a dismissive sweep of his hand, his magic sent me sprawling.
Hector!
Karalti twisted in the soldier's arms like a fish, slashing and biting. He tried to pull away from her, but a lucky claw caught him in the neck and he went down, blood spraying from his carotid. He dropped, and she fell with him, still struggling in the net.
Karalti lands a devastating blow, ×5 damage. Mercenary soldier is hemorrhaging. Congratulations, Karalti is level 2.
Time to end this, the mage panted, standing over me. He leveled his smoking hand at my chest. The Knight Commander sends his regards. Chapter 3. 6 feet behind him, Karalti's body was consumed by a kaleidoscopic haze. The opal seams in her scales spread over her entire body. The guard nearly dropped her as she seemed to liquefy, then doubled in size. It distracted everyone, even the mage. Before she'd even stopped glowing, the dragon reared her head back and opened her jaws wide. A thin plume of burning liquid, like ghostly white napalm, burst from her mouth. The net caught fire, and when it hit the Mata Argus agent, he caught on fire too. It spattered the ground, and wherever it landed, white flames erupted. The agent's cloak caught like he'd dipped it in gasoline. The heat was so intense I could feel it from the ground. I recoiled as he jumped back and to the side, shouting a new spell. Blah, pahas! Water condensed out of the air around him in a sphere and dumped over his head, like someone had poured a bucket over him. The water sloshed down, saturating his clothes, but the flames were not extinguished. Clouds of steam spewed into the air. Now he was boiling alive instead of frying. He spun away from me, clawing at his robes to get them off. I rolled to the side and clapped a hand down on the haft of the Spear of 9 spheres. Maybe we could pick away at him like this? Maybe we could. The mage snarled another word of power, whipping the dust and dirt on the street around himself like a tornado. The earth covered him, and when it fell away, the flames were extinguished. His HP was still in the green. The fire had distracted him, but Karalti was still only level 2. It hadn't injured him that much.
Batman!
Karalti's raspy, parrot-like speaking voice cut through the air as she charged the agent at a run, leaping into the air with great beats of her wings. Karalti, no! I shouted, but it was already too late. The mage blocked the napalm stream with an energetic shield, and then swatted the little dragon from the air. She cried out as she tumbled away, rolling to stillness in the churned dust of the street. We weren't strong enough. We just weren't strong enough, and I wasn't strong enough to protect her. Teeth gritted, I burned through my healing items and prepared to charge anyway. Except that someone else got there first. For Taltos! For honor! The man who emerged out of the cloud of dirt was massive. 6.5 feet tall, shoulders wider than a door, a saber in his hands. The Mata Argus mage got a shield up between him and the newcomer just in time, but the blow of that sword against the magical barrier sent him skidding across the ground. The mage looked nearly as confused as I did. He was preparing his return attack when a bright bolt of energy slammed into him from my other side. I glimpsed a small, wiry man in bright blue robes with a steel-gray ponytail and mage gloves that crackled with energy. The Mata Argus agent staggered, reeling close to the barrier overlooking the cliff, and I saw my chance. Wheezing from broken ribs, my HP throbbing in the red, I charged the mage and tackled him off the edge. Whatever magic school the Mata Argus mage had been to, they apparently hadn't taught him how to fly. He howled all the way down, plummeting like a comet into the crushing 100-foot waves that thundered against the base of the cliffs. Archemi's physics was a bitch.
You have defeated Mata Argus Agent. You gain 200 experience. Congratulations, you are level 9. You have unspent ability points. You have unspent skill points.
Karalti! There was no time to gloat. Struggling for breath, I ran to my hatchling. She was up on her feet, but she was down below half HP. A man in bright blue robes moved away from her as she flapped toward me. The dragon hit me in the chest and knocked me on my ass. She clung to me with 4 sets of pointy claws, wings beating wildly.
Hector! Hector is hurt!
Hector's gonna be fine. But Cutthroat wasn't. With Karalty pressed in close to my hip, I limped across the smoking ground and back into the stable yard to the huge body sprawled on the ground. I dropped to my knees beside Cutthroat, a lump rising in my throat. The hookwing was, to all appearances, completely dead. Out of habit, I jammed my fingers under the edge of her jaw, feeling for a pulse, even as my HUD showed me her level and remaining HP. It was 5 out of 460, and dropping slowly.
Your mount is in critical condition. You must restore HP equal to 1/4 of her total HP to stabilize her.
Shitballs, I said to no one in particular. I raided my inventory. There were 10 bone break poultices that each healed 50 HP, 6 moss tinctures that healed 70 HP, and a bunch of mana-infused potions that I could use, but would be toxic to Cutthroat. I slapped a poultice onto her wounds and pulled the dinosaur's head onto my lap. Her skull was as long as my torso, but I pried her jaws open and poured 2 moss tinctures down her throat and returned the empty bottles back into my inventory. Cutthroat twitched, then kicked spasmodically along the ground as she regained consciousness, tearing long furrows in the dirt. Then she whimpered.
Cutthroat has been stabilized. HP 145 out of 460.
The creature is badly wounded.
The blue-robed man had joined us, brow wrinkled with concern. He looked to be in his early 50s, and he had a scholarly, handsome face with wise, dark eyes. The huge knight who had intervened in the fight hovered by his left shoulder. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with an impressive mustache and strings of black runes tattooed over his cheeks and under his eyes. He was dressed in a fine chainmail tunic underneath black and red lamellar armor, which made him look like some kind of Slavic samurai. Yeah, she is. Stand back. I uncorked the second moss tincture and poured it in, shoving my arm into her mouth to make sure it went down. Putting my hand in Cutthroat's mouth wasn't the stupidest thing I've ever done, but it was definitely in the top 10 dumb ideas of Hector Park. When her eyes flickered open, dark and hazy, I had about a second to pull my arm out and scramble away. I barely managed to stay out of reach as Cutthroat snapped at me, jaws clapping together barely inches from my face. Karalty hissed at her and drew a deep breath. Before I could stop her, she exhaled wheezily in the hookwing's direction, but only a few tiny drops of burning liquid and saliva sprayed from her mouth. None of them landed on the dinosaur, and Cutthroat almost looked offended.
Oh.
Karalty hunched down, looking up at us from the ground. I turned to regard the pair of men who were still shadowing us. Thanks for the assist. To my surprise, both men went to their knees. The big knight bowed to the hilt of his sword. Blue Robes flattened himself down on the ground.
Please forgive our imposition right here.
The smaller man, mage, priest, said as he rose back up.
We saw you and your drac in distress. We could not let these rogues continue their assault on this holy creature, or you, her sacred guardian.
The knight finished. He had a deep, booming voice to go with the mustache, but gentle eyes. He gazed at Karalty as if she were an angel fallen from heaven. Karalty leaned in to sniff them curiously, wings buzzing. I rolled my shoulders and grimaced. People were beginning to stare at us, which was literally the opposite of what I wanted right now. Well, thanks. I really appreciate it, but we have to find a ship and leave. The next wave will be here any minute.
Please, lend us your ear for a minute more right here, the knight said.
He had a strange, thick accent. Not Russian, but definitely somewhere east of Germany.
I am Kirov, Knight of Taltos and representative of His Majesty Andrik Corvinus the Wise, and this is Father Petko Matthias, priest and scholar. We come from Vlachia, where your drac is a most holy being. We were, in all honesty, on our way to a royal vessel when we spied your entanglement with this knave and his...
I groaned. Well, thanks again, but we don't have much time. Where are you going with this?
Ah, well, we have been recalled to mighty Vlachia at the Volod's request following a great tragedy in the kingdom.
Kirov sheathed his sword, nodding thoughtfully and with a disturbing lack of urgency.
I was sent here to protect Father Matthias, but by the power invested in my office as Knight of the Red Star, I would offer you and your Drak sanctuary aboard our vessel.
My eyes narrowed. I'd had enough of Archemi's nightly orders to last me a lifetime, but this guy was too ridiculous not to be sincere.
The Volod ordered that we should bring any skilled adventurers with us to address the problems of the kingdom,
Father Matthias added softly.
But to find a true Drak in the company of a skillful warrior, it can only be a sign from the Nine.
The Nine? That caught my attention. I caught Cutthroat's reins in one hand as she tried to limp past me and pulled her to a stop. Wait, you're a priest of the old gods? The dragon gods? Matthias glanced at the nearest bystanders.
Please be a little more discreet right here. Their worship is outlawed here.
Kirov clasped his hands together, beseeching me.
We cannot in good conscience abandon a Drak and her guardian in these barbaric lands. I would beg you to consider our offer.
I frowned. The gamer in me said that these two were about to offer me a quest. A juicy one, given that they directly served their king, but I'd been avoiding people ever since leaving Fort Palewing, and the string of betrayals and the gross abuse of the dragons that the Knights of the Order of St. Gregory committed had left a bitter taste in my mouth. Still, the name Vlachia rang a bell somewhere. And after a couple of moments' thought, I remembered. Vlachia was the country where I was meant to meet up with Matir. Hold on a second. Keeping one eye on the two men and one on my hookwing and dragon, I opened up the description of the first major quest I'd ever received.
Ongoing quest, the Temple of the Hidden Seed. When the dark star rises to the sky, journey to the Thunderstones at Mizno, a village in the east of Vlachia. Reward, unknown. Difficulty, level 12 to 15.
Do you happen to know where the village of Mizno is? I asked Kirov.
Mizno? Why, of course!
His mustache bristled, and his eyes turned distant and dark with emotion.
Mizno is both a village and a province, down near the southern border of Vlachia. It is a sight that would melt the heart of any painter. The endless forests, the rolling hills, the mountains soaring into the sky like... Mizno village is a place of pilgrimage for the local natives,
Matthias added, wrapping Kirov's armored sleeve to shut him up.
There is a holy place up in the mountains near the town, but rumors of monsters and worse have grown in recent times. However, it is not anything I can speak of comfortably out of doors, especially on Ilian soil.
Interesting. I was betting that holy place was the Thunderstones, whatever they were. I nodded sharply. All right, I'll talk with you. You said something about a ship?
Yes, our mighty steed awaits.
Kirov nodded.
Now, please, come with us so that we might see you aboard, and journey with you to safety.
All right, and we are back. I am pretty sure that was the end of the chapter because I saw no more bouncies happening on the bottom there. And using OBS is kind of interesting at times. Oh, there we go. We got James back. So,
I have a slight delay.
You have a slight delay. Is that built in biologically or is that okay? Well,
it's the series of tubes.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, he's a series of tubes. We all are.
Thank you guys so much for listening to all of that. Yeah, a lot of you guys actually stuck through the whole thing. That's
yeah,
that's
we
really
didn't have
fantastic.
very much drop off at all. We even gained a person now.
Yeah. So thank you. I'm just getting the comments up right now and making sure that everything is still fine. Perfect.
I haven't seen any questions.
Yeah, I haven't seen any questions yet, but now that it's officially the AMA, we'll start getting to that. So if you guys have any questions, all you got to do is like the video, and then you get to ask as many questions as you like. Before we get into it, Canth, why don't we go over to you and let's talk a little bit about Cutthroat and Kuralti, who we got to witness.
Hang on, let me say one thing. The
Sure.
Hospitality Trust, that was her idea.
Oh yes, Hospitality
Because one of the
Trust.
things that we talked about was how would you have predators as mounts, like as sort of like a mass number of large predatory animals that people are riding around or using cool wagons or whatever. Like, how would you feed them? Because predators have such high metabolism.
They need way more to run their bodies because meat is a higher energy food, and they have shorter digestive tracts. So you can't just stuff hay under their faces like you can a horse. You have to give them meat, and meat has to come from somewhere. Hospitality, I missed a part of the conversation, so I'm not
so like
up.
when they're riding through the city with Cutthroat, and after Cutthroat has her hysterics over the fishmonger, and knocks the fish everywhere. That was one of the things she suggested too. Where they go through the city, and Hector pulls into the stable, and the stable has like a trough full of offal and skin and stuff. Yeah. So she and I work very closely together on that sort of thing because Canth has a really, really deep body of knowledge about lots of different kinds of animals.
Right.
And I'm really big on things like logistics. The logistics of maintaining a large animal. Trial by Fire was written when James and I were living on the grounds of a stable where I boarded my horse. And many of the rituals that Suri used to seduce Cutthroat came from the rituals that are involved in working with a horse in a round pen, and which is a large animal, roughly the size of Cutthroat. As well as our parrot, Silas. Birds can see more colors than we can, so they see things very vividly. And so to Cutthroat, Suri's hair...
It's like this great big bonfire.
Was this an advertisement, come get me, and I don't mean in the bad way.
Take me now.
Take me now. It's like a bodice ripper cover for a bird, or because birds communicate through color.
So we do a lot of joking around about the animals, and that's how a lot of the best scenes with Kuralti and Cutthroat came about. Where there's I won't spoil it terribly, but there is regurgitation involved at one point in their relationship, with Suri and Cutthroat's relationship, and we joke around about that stuff a lot.
Fans may recall the wonderful picture that was done by the artist of the cover that has Cutthroat offering Suri an arm, and Suri's like, "Oh look, oh." And all of that also arises from avian behavior.
And same with Kuralti as well. Like as Kuralti matures and comes into her adulthood and her mantle as a queen dragon, there's lots of. And you can actually see it through this book. Laurie does an incredible job of taking Kuralti from that adorable little tiny dragon, that little baby dragon, through to a mature sort of like young adolescent.
Do the head shake. Oh, Mom!
The attitude.
The attitude of a tween.
But we have a question. D. McClanahan has asked in the Facebook group. Who was Cutthroat? Cutthroat was the raging dinosaur.
Yeah, she's the one that, like, in the start of the book, gets spooked when Hector sneezes and then goes and trashes a bunch of market stalls. She was kind of like the unofficial star of book one. I get more fan mail about Cutthroat than any other character. So, you know, she's very popular with the readers for the most part.
I got the sneezing. I suggested the sneezing idea because my sister's corgi, hi sis, had this peculiar habit of whenever someone sneezed, she went berserk.
Yeah, she just go
absolutely berserk. And I can get an animal to do just about anything I ask, but she would not let go of sneezing means go berserk, and that was what I suggested. I need a diversion. Well, there's a
Some
diversion.
horses do that too.
Yes,
Like if you've ever ridden a nervous horse or been around a nervous horse, you make a loud sound and suddenly that thing, like this placid, like totally, you know, unoffensive animal, just this suddenly becomes 2 tons of terror. And
you're riding along and supported, and the next thing you know, you're airborne and you don't know why.
And anyone in the audience who lives in the country or who has ridden horses can tell you that once that animal decides it doesn't want something on its back, there is nothing you can do to stop it. You don't realize how strong a mount is until it loses its shit. And suddenly, it doesn't matter like how big of a guy you are, how much you work out, suddenly you are the one, you feel like this big. Yeah. Because there's nothing you can do to stop it.
And if you aren't from a farm and you want to experience... at least experience the imagination of what that could be like. Dragon Seed gives many examples of when that happens. I was wondering...
I try, like as an author, I try very capture some of the sheer massiveness of some of these creatures, especially the dragons. You know, 100 long creature is pretty much unstoppable.
It's a blue whale.
Yeah, about the size of a blue whale. I mean, they're huge.
It's going to have a heart the size of a Volkswagen.
It has 2 hearts.
Yeah, and they're huge.
It's going to have a heart the size of a Volkswagen and a heart the size of, what, a Fiat? Or like a...
Yeah.
And blood vessels, a small child can crawl through them.
Fun!
So...
Fun amusement park idea.
It's like the weirdest amusement park ever.
This is what... Yeah, I know an awful lot about different animals, and blue whales are as big as the dragons.
You haven't ridden any blue whales, though.
No. I have ridden a manta ray.
Oh.
I have legit, like, gotten on the back of a manta ray.
Cool. Wow.
That is the thing I have done.
And was that, like, that was in Australia, I imagine?
Yeah, that was in Australia.
Wow. I was wondering, Kent, would you be able to talk a little bit about the differences between the dragon, the behavior of the dragon, Cruelty, and the behavior of Cutthroat? And where you make those distinctions?
You could think of Cruelty as Cutthroat if Cutthroat could think. If Cutthroat had a frontal lobe. Cutthroat lives very much in the present. And while Cruelty is young, so does she. Cutthroat doesn't have a lot of forethought beyond her muzzle, beyond her face.
Right.
And it's like, if it's a danger, I can eat it. If I can eat it, it must die now. Cruelty has a mind. She has a frontal cortex. She is capable of, although as a child to a lesser degree, thoughts about what happens when she does X, Y, Z. Cutthroat is like a hardware thing.
Yeah, she's basically a brainstem with teeth.
Right. They call it a lizard brain for a reason. And well, you know, she's doing behaviors that are passed down to them genetically, and there is some variation from individual to individual. But Cruelty is capable of growing psychologically.
Right.
And she does a lot. Like through book 2 and especially book 3 is where she really becomes to come into her own mind. And throughout the course of book 2, she's very much going through her early adolescence. You know, this is kind of a Cruelty grows up story in a lot of ways. And she goes from being that like, oh my god, fishies, to, you know, like having a sense of herself as a person.
Right.
And that very much sort of, she blossoms over the course of the second book and into the third book, very much in that room. Whereas Cutthroat just stays Cutthroat.
You could say that no, Cutthroat does change.
She does.
But Cutthroat is more experienced, whereas Cruelty is growth, is learning. Cutthroat becomes cannier, whereas Cruelty becomes wiser.
I see.
And you could be smart and canny. My miniature pincher just drained this entire cup of tea in about 2 minutes when I accidentally left it.
Our dog is a caffeine.
When I accidentally left it on my desk in the chair close enough he could get to it, the only clue I got was this ding of his tags hitting the cup. And I was like, did I hear that? And I got up, and sure enough, here he goes, and he goes running out, and he's licking.
Oh man!
And there's no tea in my one.
Yeah, he's gotten to the point now where he can like stealthily ninja his way. Like it's like Metal Gear Solid Adventure Edition. He just gets up on the desk and chugs whatever caffeinated drink is on the desk. So
yes,
he's an addict.
He is an addict. Is it just caffeinated drinks?
Legit.
Or is it like
he is legit a caffeine addict, and he
Wow.
will do anything to get our coffee or tea.
Wow.
And I
Like,
do,
we have something
and we
in
do
common.
everything. I was doing something unusual today, and then I actually had a mug instead of. I usually have a covered
sealed
water container to keep liquid, so he can't get to them.
We usually use
clever.
lids for that reason, because
Yeah.
otherwise he gets them, and then you've got a dog that's already incredibly high strung and hyperactive on caffeine,
and loving it. And we're surrounded by animals, so it would only be natural that you can't help but go, when Bella thumps her tail, there's a lot of that in Cruelty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
You can sense that. The irritable tail flap. Like you can tell what a cat is feeling just based on the whipping of their tail.
Oh, both she and our other cat wag their tails when they're pleased. Bella is much more highly strung than Muriel. Bella's the Sphinx. She's a naked kitty.
Right.
Muriel is much more relaxed.
I have one more question about Cruelty and Cutthroat. Cruelty in this book, not really spoiler, she starts developing skills. Like for the lit RPG side, how did you go about incorporating these creatures, these very living, breathing creatures, into a game world that has stats and numbers and all that stuff?
So effectively, Cruelty operates almost like a summon, I guess. Like there are some games that have systems. The one that comes to mind, it's not Guilty Gear. God, what's it called? I've had a mental blank on the name of the game, of course. Basically, she is kind of like a sub-character, I guess, in the game sense, and that she's still dependent on Hector for ability selection and skills, but she has a limited selection of classes of her own and certain skills and abilities that she can. And as she gets older, she begins to have what seems to be, at least from a reader's perspective, agency in like what skills or paths she can take. Usually she is, because she's functionally an artificial intelligence who is becoming a person. I don't want to talk too much about that because that could be spoilers for books, but basically she gets some input. She'll sort of make recommendations or say what she wants, and then defer to the player, who will then choose what path or skill she takes.
If you think about it, any child comes with their own talents and aptitudes, but they're more likely to choose what they do, at least in their youth, based on what their parents know.
Yeah. So the thing with the game system is that part of the job that the AI of the game has is pairing up NPCs with players that are sort of in tune with them. So it will actually generate characters that are aligned ideologically or in terms of ability or whatever with the character, like with the player. I don't know if that makes sense. So if a player is sort of a barbarian Conan type guy,
Right.
the AI is going to sort of put people in his path that are like him or that work well with him. So he's going to meet like other barbarians, and he's going to meet people that are sort of more in line with his personality and his play style.
Interesting.
So Hector is more likely to come across people like like Cruelty, than he is, say, like a strength or brute force based kind of NPC.
Now, that's really interesting because
it's very subtle and kind of weirdly manipulative.
It's also present in mirroring between Suri and Cutthroat in a lot of ways.
So like Cutthroat's introduction to Suri is kind of serendipitous, but it's the same kind of thing. And it is manipulative. It is literally the AI socially manipulating the players, because the AI's job is to give players a good experience.
Well, that's really interesting, because then you start asking questions like you're getting into deep things like fate and stuff, and this is the AI that is kind of dishing out this fate, but it's not. It's very, very subtle. I never would have thought about. And
in book one, Hector finds himself initially wondering about that, and he's spoilers for book one, when he has slept with Ruther. And they've had their one night stand or 2 night stand, and he's lying in bed afterwards thinking, it's kind of strange that this has happened. Like, I've only met this girl and I've never done this before. And then he kind of thinks about it, that she's like perfect for him, and the situation was perfect, and the time was right for all of this. And then he's kind of like, I wonder if this is problematic, but he's too tired, too happy to really think about it much more.
And then he forgets about it.
But it is actually something that the game itself does. It actually pairs players and NPCs to be compatible or potentially compatible. It doesn't force those relationships. It just provides players with the NPCs that are most likely to be compatible with them.
Or incompatible.
Or incompatible if they're antagonists. Yeah.
And just to be clear, this is meta that isn't going to spoil.
This is meta.
Big.
It's not. It doesn't spoil anything, no. Right. Certainly not in book 2. In book 3, they discuss it more, but again, there's not actually any spoilers for why they're discussing it or what the context, who's discussing it or anything.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Canth. Thank you, James, for explaining all of that. And you're welcome to hang around, Canth, for the final Q&A session. We haven't had too many questions, so...
no one seems to be asking. How many books do you envision the series taking? D. McQuanican asked that. The books, at this stage, it's looking like 7 in the series total. That may go up to 8. I did ask my fan groups if they would be happier with 2 shorter books next time instead of 1 longer book. The 3rd book in the series was huge. It was like almost 200,000 words. It was a massive book. I've got a copy of it here. Like, Trial by Fire is 140, but Kingdom Come is like this great big
chunker
tome. It's this, it's like it's much bigger than the 2nd book. So I asked my fans if they would prefer me to do 2 shorter books so that the books could come out faster, and they said they would much prefer that. So it could be 8, but the story was envisioned going over an arc of 7 books.
7 books.
Yeah,
that's exciting. We've only scratched the surface.
I think by LitRPG standards, that's a fairly long series. There's only a few series that have ongoing serials.
Yeah. Okay, so all of Justin Smith's questions have been answered. Bon likes big books, and she cannot lie. That is a fact.
It's true.
I also like big books. I like the idea of them. I like the idea of big books being on my shelf, but actually having the time to actually sit and read through them, unless it's for work, obviously, is I just can't fathom it.
I like big books as long as they're fast-paced. And I very much tried to do that with Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come actually moves quite quickly because it's basically like a skirmish campaign book. It's a war scenario, and there's a lot of fast movement that goes on in it. And I have had people kind of read through it in a day and just like, where's the next one?
Well, I mean, at this point, everyone's attached to the characters and everyone wants to see what happens next, because you do set it up, without spoiling anything, you set it up well at the end of Trial by Fire to invite, okay, what's going to happen next, to invite that question.
Yeah.
So,
at the end of Trial by Fire, you've got a pretty good idea what 3 is going to be.
Yeah.
At least on the superficial level.
You get a sign that points to the city down the road, but you have no idea what you're going to find there.
That's a really good way of putting it. I'm excited. Well, needless to say, I am very excited to listen to listen to read Kingdom Come. I'm going to be starting that sometime in the fall or in December, so sooner than the wait for Trial by Fire.
There is a question for you in the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
Okay. How did Justin get into the narrator life, and what's his process for bringing so many characters alive? Woo, that's a question.
It's liquor.
What's that?
Liquor.
Liquor. Booze.
Booze. Oh yeah, it is liquor. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I had to.
Sorry, Australian accent.
Yeah, like Lakers.
Welcome to my life.
I started. I actually grew up with audiobooks. My dad would listen to audiobooks every night before bed, and it was something that I just always had in the background. And then eventually, I was working a full-time job, and clickety clack, clickety clack, clickety clack, clickety clack. So those mechanical keyboards, James, those are
sorry about that.
Intense. I've got one of those too.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to audiobooks a lot as a kid, and I also realized that this was something that people could do earlier. So once I was like working a 9-to-5 job that I wasn't overly happy in, was completely burnt out. As a hobby, I figured narrating would be something fun to do, and maybe I could make some money at it afterwards. And so I started doing that, and then, long story short, I met Jeff, and he started paying me to do this. So
that helps. That helps a lot.
It definitely helps. It definitely helps to meet the right people at the right time. And then bringing characters to life. Honestly, Jeff has helped a lot in, I guess, guiding me through how to characterize my characters, working with other actors and listening to what they're doing. Like Laurie Catherine Winkle, she's fantastic.
She has a really broad range of different voices she can.
She does, and she is a professional actor. She has done movies and shows, and she's really good. So listening to her lines and having to act off of those. Annie Ellicott as well, fantastic. Andrea Parsoneau we've been working with quite a bit. I haven't had a chance to work with Will on a project, but he's exceptional. His accent game is just on point. And I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but just like the different actors that I've had the chance. Oh, and not to mention the proofers. We've got fantastic proofers who are like, you're slipping character here. Both Bon and Sin are excellent at making sure we stick to the characters that we set out to portray. So that's how teamwork.
Yeah, there's definitely a need for proofers, because there's some ridiculous similarities between, say, like an Eastern European accent and a Scottish accent. And then I remember when we were first testing out the characters, and you were sort of trying to do the Wallachian accent, which is actually not right, more Central European, sort of Central East Europe. You would occasionally slip into Scottish.
Yeah, I know. But what's those tapped R's? It's the and the glottal, not the glottal, but the dark R's and L's. That's very common in Scottish as well.
Mm-hmm. And the rolling R's.
That's how I know it works. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions right now, but you have questions later, join the James Osiris Baldwin Facebook group. Join the Soundbooth Theater Live Facebook group. Join the Gamelet Society. Join
the Discord channel.
Yeah. Join the Discord
channel. So we have the author Discord. I'll offer game on and sort of either live stream on that channel. Enjoy if they have the same game and they play. People come to game with me on the Discord.
Yeah.
Then we have voice chat, and I post chapter snippets there. So generally, when I'm working future projects, like I'm working on book 4 for Archemi now. I'm also working on the first book of the project. I'll be posting like bits and pieces of those on my Discord. I tend to do that more than Facebook now, just because the Discord is just so busy. People are always there, and
he also talks about his other series, where there's a channel for his other series that he's written, and he's getting the books now. Yes.
Oh yeah.
So this isn't Lit RPG though. Yeah, this book isn't Lit RPG, but I do have a channel specifically on that Discord for my.
So if you're one of those readers that has read him from cover to cover in terms of bibliographies and other questions, you can bring those as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just want to hang out with a really cool person who's an author, then you're welcome. Just pop on in and say hi.
Beautiful. That is James and Kent. That's your Discord, Facebook group, SBTL Discord group for them too, us too, rather.
We should probably tell them when we think the book's going to come out.
They don't care about that. Okay, fine. So we just uploaded it to Audible yesterday, 2 days ago.
And if the Amazon gods smile upon us,
yes, it will be tomorrow.
It will be anywhere between 3 and 14 days.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Again, all of those places we will be posting announcements. So make sure you join those groups. And is there anything else, James, Kent, that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. Thank you very much for the reading. The final better than the version I listened to, and it's very much a story that builds up a pretty sharp head of steam as it progresses, and the stakes get higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, and each character you can feel those stakes again, like Laurie and Jeff, like the way they bring out the characters when they're getting more and more intense, and like at the climax, it's just like, it's crazy. The emotions are just flowing. So I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this. And
Jeff plays a really good villain.
Oh yeah, he was born to play a villain. I mean, I don't know what it says, but
born to it.
If that is all, I would like to end the stream with you guys getting a sneak peek. Well, it's not officially posted yet, but I've got the soundtrack to the audiobook. It's, I think, about 24 minutes long, and as your thank you for sticking around, how about we put that on now and let you guys leave with some music.
Yeah,
all right,
that sounds good.
Great. Well, thanks again for watching, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for checking out James Baldwin and listening to Kent and I talk. And I really hope that you enjoy the book when it comes out. We'll see you later.
Thank you very much, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.